Okay, so welcome everyone. We are live for our first webinar. So this is a new series that us, like Velfa, are starting called Loops. It's about the research innovation going on in the field of circular economy, specifically the Horizon 2020 funded projects. So for this episode, we're talking to two experts, Dr. Georgios Dimitri and Vasilis Katos, about the efforts to create smarter, more sustainable cities through using technology and data in novel and innovative ways. But I'll let them introduce themselves first. So, Georgios, do you want to go?
Hi, Holly. Thank you very much. Thank you very much to Velsa for organizing this amazing gathering today. My name is Georgios Dimitriou, and I'm the director of the Circular Economy Research Center of the École de Bonn Business School, and I'm really happy to be with you today.
Morning. Thanks for the invitation. My name is Vasilis Katos. I'm professor of cybersecurity at Bournemouth University, and I'm very excited to be here because circular economy is now our mainstream research and our passion. Thank you.
Great. So just to go over a quick overview of the session. So both of our speakers are going to give like 10-minute presentations about their work and their research. After, I will do a little bit of moderation, sort of start to ask some questions, but we really want audience questions. So if you do have any questions, feel free to comment them on the LinkedIn event page, and we'll pick them up and we'll ask them at the end for the audience Q&A. So at any point you want to write a question, submit it. Okay, so first we're going to go with Georgios. So take it away.
Thank you very much, Holly. I will share my screen in a couple of seconds, but before I do that, I just want to give the audience an understanding of what they're going to see right now, because we want to show our research, but at the same time, we want to show a little bit about us and the logic behind that. And then this will also connect with what Vasilis will share in a couple of minutes. So let me try and share it now, and hopefully you will be able to see it. Okay. Okay. Let me see. For some reason, I cannot share the screen now. Interesting. Sorry guys for this hiccup. This happens. Let me try again. Share my screen. Okay, I think now you'll be able to see it.
Yes.
Let me know. Great. So first of all, again, thank you very much for everybody who's attending this event, this discussion that has been organized by Velsa, and having my colleague with me, Vasilis Katos from Bournemouth University, is really an honor. And again, thanks to Velsa, which I will recommend the audience to have a look at the website of Velsa, and the work that they've been doing is really amazing and it's inspirational for us as well. So let me give you a little bit of context in these 10 minutes about us. So let me explain you the Bots family. The business school is part of the École de Bonn Paris Tech, and the Circular Economy Research Center is part of the business school. And in this way, as I will explain later, we have the best of both worlds, being a lead engineering school and a business school at the same time. Let me give you a little bit of some research context in order to understand a little bit, because everybody is talking about the topic of circular economy. Reporting indicates that circular economy applications started already in 1970s. Some say a little bit earlier, some a bit later, but it was merely about applications in the domain. In 1990s, we see some research papers discussing about the topic, but not exactly named the circular economy, but applications of these that resemble what we are discussing today as circular economy. In 2000, we already observed more discussion about the topic, but that has not been enough to, to make the topic fly. And I will explain that in a while. In 2010, the discussion is elevated, but still not strong enough. And here we are coming in 2015, I would say that And here I would like to share some policy context and the sunk cost of research, as we call it. And this will also give you an understanding how it links to the previous slides. In 2015, we all witnessed the launch of the circular economy, closing the loop policy action by the European Commission. And of course, now in 2020, we have seen the Circular Economy Action Plan, let's say Part B, under the Green Deal. And of course, the European Green Deal, which doesn't include only the Circular Economy Action Plan, but a number of other initiatives that are correlated and linked with that as well. Now, why do we mention this? Because this is linked to the financing, and what do we want to say about that? What we say is that what we noticed is that despite the fact that the discussion has started already in the 70s, and despite the fact that progressively it started, picking up, the wish and the will of the stakeholders and the people was not enough to undertake the sunk cost of research to elevate the discussion and make it a mainstream and make it a prominent action. And that's just to say is that it's not that people before were not able to understand the limitation of resources or the impact that our current models are having to the environment, et cetera, but it was someone had to assume the sunk cost. And regarding finance, the European Union, I think it took the lead on that, financing the circular economy. And some targeted actions, for example, I'm showing the acceleration to the transition to circular economy. There was a report by an expert group of 30 people. I was one of these people on making recommendations on how to improve access to finance for circular economy projects. The EIB, a leading banking institution, investment banking institution, has also developed a guide supporting the circular economy transition and gives a lot of information, which was published this May as well. So this is to show that there has been an uptake of this sunk cost that we didn't see happening before. So Europe indeed has taken the lead, and we have to be really proud about that. And here you see also the evolution of the framework programs and the investments that have been made in billions of euros. And this is what also is happening now. From 77 billion in 2020, we are going into 100 billion euros in the next 7 years. And a big chunk of it is devoted to circular economy, sustainability related topics and issues. So this is for us something very important, at least at the European level, because US is also picking up, and other continents as well. I was recently a speaker at Harvard University about their inaugural, let's say, a conference on introducing circular economy in their curriculums. And one of the things that we realized is that we are talking about the same thing, but in Europe, we're approaching it a little bit different. I think this is one of the issues that Europe is really being a pioneer at. So we took a little bit of a snapshot, and we wanted to present it here, is that we went a little bit back to, let's say, 2013, and we looked at, based on the data provided by the Commission, how many projects have been funded in this context of circular economy. So the map, it looks a little bit empty. Then if we go forward a little bit in 2014, we'll realize that a number of projects have been funded across the globe, because as you know that H2020 doesn't fund only EU entities, but we may have collaboration with other continents, which makes that very, very, very good for research institutions. Now, as you see in 2015, this is increasing, and you have more projects and more partnerships, and et cetera, et cetera. 2016, again, you see partnerships in North Korea and so on and so forth. So this is propagating. And now, linked to that, there are some details that we need to highlight about the EU. Between 2018 and 2020, the European Commission was mobilizing 2.7 billion euros from Horizon 2020 to support high-risk, high-gain innovation to create the markets of the future, which this is highly linked to the circular economy and the discussion we are doing. Now, on top of that, there was a decision of political priorities for these 2 years, and circular economy was one of these priorities with 1 billion euros in investment. So you have to understand that the projects and the research that's been awarded that period, with a lifespan of 3 or 4 years to develop their work, we are expecting to see results in 2021, 2022, and onwards. But this is just to show the determination of the EU to take this agenda forward. Now, on the Horizon Europe, this is also the new funding program that is coming ahead. We see some very important references that should be taken into account by everybody, and actually took a serious consideration from our side in forming our focus and orientation and strategy. And this is how digital transformation and leadership will enable circular economy. Just be careful to the words related to digitized and circular economy. They are oftenly very connected in this new era that is coming ahead of us. And of course, the chapter 14-8 on circular industries and what is defined in circular industry. The other thing we wanted to share with the audience, and that's also part of our conclusions that I'll share in a couple of minutes, is that there was a communication on shaping Europe's digital future. And what does that suggest? Again, it suggests the same thing: circular, digital, and globally competitive EU industries. Same, a white paper on artificial intelligence. Again, look at the wording: green and circular economy, and linking the circular economy with digital evolution. For us, this is not a strange thing. And I will explain to you why it's not strange for us. And so then the discussion is also about skills and education. So what we've seen in 2016 in the skills agenda published by the European Commission, there were 2 references to circular economy. In 2020, there are 5 references to circular economy, and I can say quite accurate and quite enabling. Now, going towards my conclusion, just to say a few things about the circular economy research center that I'm leading. So we're a business school within an engineering school, combining, as I said, the best of both worlds, okay? Meaning that we have the engineering research, we have the business models, we have the people. So this is something that for us is not disconnecting research from the real needs. That is why working with executives that they follow our MBA, DBA programs, and that face real work-life problems that need to solve, help us a lot to orient our work. Something we underline to our students, but as well to our stakeholders, is that circular economy is not one-to-one exact science. So whoever sees that like that, I think they will have a problem to orient themselves. So we strongly believe, and this is our personal, let's say, a perception at the research center, that circular economy, if understood well and applied well, respectively, can significantly disrupt existing linear models. And we have seen that in many occasions and many examples. We also firmly believe that technological advancements coupled with the skills development will be the 2 main factors that will exponentially help to expedite the transition to circular economy. This is not to deprive or put secondary the scientific research in a number of domains, environmental, etc., but this is just to say that we do think, and we've seen it also in other cases and in other research domains, that the technological advancements and the new skills developed by people are the one regenerating the old models, whether linear or circular. So this is what we are looking at here as well. So in order to do it ourselves, I mean, you need to walk the talk. We are not doing things alone. So it's not our MBAs or DBAs or research students that they are involved. We have an array of research partners, and we are proud of them. And these are part of our research partners that we're doing our projects. And also we are doing targeted projects, and here are our running projects, in order to actually test our understanding and our thoughts and our theories. The ideal cities, which will be presented by Vasilis in a while, Biophoenix, which is again based on a biomedical model about regenerative software, the CE-IoT, which I will give a couple of words in a while, Smartship, which is a data analytics for circular economy based multi-layer optimization platform for the shipping energy, and IBDAS, which is a big data as a self-service as well in algorithms optimization that can help us give a number of outputs to the domain. So the Circular Economy and Internet of Things project is about the interplay between the circular economy and the Internet of Things. I will not go through this mission statement. You can read it on the website, but I will go a little bit further and present the ecosystem. On the left-hand side that I see, or your right-hand side possibly, you see the circular economy. We all know this graph. And on the right-hand side or the left-hand side, you see the IoT graph and the properties between them. Our research has shown that putting these two together, you can create a unique value creation business model and supply chain that enable a different way of doing the same things. And that is why we're developing an innovative framework of interplay between the circular economy and the Internet of Things, and also a bit of implementation guide to show the people that they are in the technology domain, but also business leaders on how this can disrupt existing models that we're working on a daily basis. But let's see some of these technologies. Big data, evidently, Internet of Things, blockchain, artificial intelligence, cloud security, or let's say cloud storage, additive manufacturing and 3D printing, robotics, virtual and augmented reality, autonomous vehicles. This would clearly be disrupting the models that we knew so far. Some facts and figures I want to present is that 87% of the consumers have never heard the term of Internet of Things. So you understand why education and skills is really needed in this context. And we're not talking about just scientific research. By 2020, and I deliberately put these facts and figures of 2015, about 25 billion connected things will be in use. I can assure you that we have exceeded that number at least by 50%. IoT will have a total economic impact in US dollars in about 11.1 trillion per year by 2025. I think we will achieve this impact quite earlier than that, also given what I presented before on the research that will be coming up. Now, one practical example is the Edge building of Deloitte in Amsterdam. The Edge is the most sustainable building in the world, with 98% certification on their sustainability, and include a number of innovations and let's say technological advancements which made the building so sustainable. And what we can see here is that this is a good example of circular economy, which a number of disciplines, architects, engineers, tech people work together to make that. There are 32,000 sensors in the building, which enable tremendous data for big flows. They have achieved the office optimization with 35% of the offices are empty during a working week. The cleaning services are optimized based on actual use of spaces, and health has been also in the focus. For example, the airflow management is based on office occupancy and density. So offices that have none, they receive less airflow, and more people, more airflow. So there are a number of functions that technologically have been enabled. And of course, heating, again, is proportionate to that as well. Very important is that the Edge is producing 10% more energy than it's consuming. So if you look at the Edge in a bigger landscape, so if you can imagine a city like this in the near future that is able to develop its own energy, share it, enable smart working, smart buildings and homes, etc., etc. So this is not very far from the future if we understand that the impact that technology will have on our work. Now, we have, of course, and that's part of the CE-IoT, and we have already delivered some of our work, and this is publicly available. We already delivered the technical patterns that we see. We already delivered the business models and the interplay that they have with circular economy. We already delivered the circular economy supply chain and how it is enhanced by IoT. And lastly, of course, there are some security aspects to this, the emerging intelligent asset landscape, which is being created with all these IoT devices. And this has to be part of the circular economy as well. So I invite you to read the work, which is publicly available to everybody, and that's the beauty of the research under Horizon 2020. So thank you for your attention. I rushed it a bit in order to be able to, make it on time, and I'm very eager to see Vasilis' presentation, which also blends all these concepts into a real use case under our Ideal Cities project. Thank you very much, and sorry if I rushed it a bit more than I should be.
Thank you, Georgios. For people who tuned in later, we've just talked about the project CE-IoT. Now we're going to turn to Vasilis Katos, who's going to talk about his work with Ideal Cities.
Okay, now let me try to share the screen. If it works, we're good to go. You should be able to Okay. Thank you, Yorgo, for the context setting. That was great, and line of circularity, and that was particularly interesting because now taking it into the context of cities and smart cities, while there was a timeline of activities in circularity and circular economy, at the same time there was also another timeline, maybe a parallel world, a parallel universe of cities and smart cities. And what we realized is that even cities, some smart cities didn't explicitly state that they would like to become circular. Actually, that was the case, because at the end of the day, what a city would like to solve is sustainability. And they're using technologies, they're using smart enabling technologies to solve sustainability problems. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dive a little bit into this, and to be more specific, let me just see if this works, just to give you an idea what we are doing. First of all, this is my location, the beautiful Bournemouth. Yes, the pictures you see on the left-hand side are not borrowed from another place, from a Mediterranean or other place. This is actually England. It's actually Great Britain, and the beautiful Bournemouth. Unfortunately, though, last couple of weeks ago, last week or two, or the 24th of June, this was the situation in Bournemouth. This was a few Wednesdays ago. And the reason I'm showing this is that we need to focus in a few key performance indicators. So on that day, we had about 500 people on the beach, 500,000 beach. Resource crowd. Now, crowd is also an interesting concept, because crowd and crowd sensing and crowdsourcing and the wisdom of the crowd are terms that you probably have heard, that you've come across with. And this is the case where the crowd didn't help. 558 parking fines. Yes, what is the purpose of issuing a parking fine? It's not for a council to make money. It is to deter people to visit a particular place. In this case, this was not applicable. It wasn't appropriate, because if somebody visited Bournemouth that day, they would stay. We had visitors from Newcastle. Newcastle is many, many miles away. So people drove from Newcastle. They drove from Birmingham to sunbathe. I'm sure that the people, if they had some information on what the crowd or what the volume of people would be like on that day, maybe they would reconsider, maybe they wouldn't take that trip if they had access to that information before the event. 33 tons of rubbish. There's no comment on that, and there is definitely no comment, and I would like not to comment on the fact that there weren't any public toilets. We're talking about a lockdown period. We're talking about unavailability of restaurants, of hotels, so there weren't any resources. There weren't any. So the only place that people could come and stay, were forced to stay, because once you entered Bournemouth, you cannot easily leave as well, is just the beach. What was the outcome? The city was declared in a state of a major incident. And it was very unfair also for the council to try to handle all this. So are there any lessons learned? I'm sure there are many lessons learned, and let's see what could have been done. We argue that, yes, a circular economy and smart cities would need to be better prepared to prevent these situations. And if something happens, if an outlier happens, if an outlier event, if an incident happens, they should be able to cope with it. So this is the actual, a normal sunny day in Bournemouth. Much nicer, much pleasant, much better, better quality of life for the visitors and the citizens of Bournemouth. And let's say now I'm going to dive into a few use cases that we examined through the project. So, because something that we need to realize is that when we talk about circular economy, It's not about waste management. Oh boy, it's for sure not waste management. We cannot talk about waste management if we're talking about circular economy. It's like talking about only recycling, and that is probably sending the wrong messages. It's setting the wrong expectations. It is circular economy, and probably there are more experts in the audience. We know that circular economy is about making sure that the available resources, the available finite resources, are utilized in the best possible way. If we talk only about recycling, we have probably lost this game. So let's say that we've got a normal day in the beach, and there is a medical emergency. So somebody needs medical attention. Normally, under the standard way of, let's call it the standard way or conventional way of doing this, you need to call services, or in some cases somebody may shout, is there a doctor close by? And in our circular life and in our scenario, there may be a tourist. So a person, a citizen of another country, let's say from Germany, there's a German tourist that has visited Bournemouth that happens to be a medic. So it would be great if there was a system to use that resource. Yeah, so we're talking about somebody with a role of a tourist that has also a capability of being a physician or a medic, and happens to be, so location is also important, happens to be close by. So if we would like to make this more official and streamline it, we need to look into the requirements. So we definitely need location-based services. We need to have the profile of the citizen. They need to have a consent, and they need to declare themselves available. Yes, I am a doctor. I would like to go to Bournemouth to wind down, because I had a very difficult year. I was in the lockdown. I really need to go to Bournemouth and have a nice swim in the fantastic beach and the sea. But I don't mind if there is an emergency close by for me to offer my services. And that means that the main healthcare services, the healthcare services of Bournemouth, will not be overwhelmed if many people had a similar thought. Of course, in order to do that, we need to have capabilities to certify. This needs to be captured somewhere, this event. You need to check that the person is qualified, and all the history of the whole, let's call it a transaction, a medical transaction, is recorded somewhere, because there may be a need between the countries to exchange information or billing or whatever. So you can see how information is important and how an information system can help implement something like this. But there are many aspects to this that need to be addressed. So this is a good example of use of human capital, of people's skills. So we're trying to escape from this recycling and plastics, and how we can better recycle and use plastics. Now, of course, we've been a long way since the development of privacy and the need for privacy, and we have now the GDPR. Of course, we need to make sure that we shield our privacy and we cherish our privacy rights. So there are technologies, and we have been looking also in the literature about technologies on how is it possible to deliver all this while also preserving the citizens' privacy. If we turn into the area of cryptography, there are some very nice, very beautiful protocols, cryptographic protocols, in the area of we call it secure multi-party computations. So basically, what you can do is that everybody has a mobile phone, so including that German doctor. The German doctor, through the mobile phone, there may be an application that declare their availability and their consent to be contacted. And cryptography and privacy preservation techniques can ensure that should there a medical emergency arise in a place near that doctor, the location of that doctor will be revealed, and that doctor will be contacted, but at the same time, if there's another doctor a few meters further away, their location will still be secret, will still be private. And these are really nice protocols, and these can be brought into this context, because we're talking about releasing and maybe making available information available in real time, and maybe outside the initial scope. So we always need to respect privacy. So this is something that we can look into, and actually we're looking into. Another important aspect is visually impaired or mobility impaired citizens. No place, no city can start throwing in technologies without considering all the citizens. We would like to have an inclusive city. We are talking about improving the quality of life in a city. We cannot do that if there is, if we start excluding people. So a good example here is, let's say we've got a visually impaired citizen. Now, technology and approaches for a visually impaired person navigating in a city, especially in a place that they are familiar with, more or less they have been resolved, they have been addressed. But this is not always the case. If, for example, we have if somebody wants to go from point A to point B, they may be able to go to point A to point B, but we want also to provide contextual awareness. So if, for example, the place is blocked, or if there are two people, if there are drunk people, if there are aggressive people on their path, the person needs to be aware, the person needs to be notified. And these are new. We're talking about social distancing now. Now, social distancing is about being aware. How would a visually impaired person be aware of the social distancing aspects? How they would know? So, and this is, again, it all has to do with capturing data and being and having access to the data. May I remind you, talking about healthcare, John Snow's the father of epidemiology, cholera map in London. What John Snow did is that he created a bar chart, and he superimposed the bar chart of deaths in the locations, in specific locations in London, and then he identified that it was a pump that was spreading the cholera. So this is the first example of visual analytics. Another example, I'm running out of time, so I'm going to be wrapping up quickly, is Barcelona's super blocks. Barcelona is an interesting case because they had pollution problems. So in this case, yes, you need to remove the streets, you need to remove the roads from a city. But if you talk to other companies that use a circular economy, like business models like Uber, for example, that's not suitable for Uber. But we do not want to promote the use of a car when it should not be used. How would you provide an incentive for a car to stay put? Well, there will be smart cars, and it would be trivial to modify or have a smart car with a smart locker. So to essentially the owner of the car committing that the car is not going to be moved, so the bonnet of the car can be used as a smart locker. So a tourist or a visitor in a city, they could use somebody's car to store their baggage for the day. Finally, we want an adaptive city. We want a responsive city. The Manchester Arena attack. What happened that day is that when the attack happened, people started streaming, and the result was that the telecoms, the mobile network was overwhelmed, and the first responders could not communicate. So in this case, we're talking about having lanes on the network that are dedicated when needed for the emergency services, similar to what we have on the roads. A road can be available for the full traffic, but if there is an emergency, you reserve a lane for emergency services, for ambulances. This is something that we need to do also on the network, on the virtual, on the cyber plane. And finally, what we came up with was a maturity model. So we realized that different cities have different starting points, but they have the same goal. So we thought of proposing a maturity model that will involve people, IoT devices and infrastructure. And depending on the level of maturity, we have different states. So initially, we've got the instrumented city, where the people don't really engage. This is when you just measure your consumption. So these are the smart meters that people have. This is just an instrumented city. Then we have the connected city, when the utility companies start exchanging information and they can start seeing the bigger picture. Then we have the smart city. There's more deployment of devices. There's more coordinated communication. The council has a more prominent role. But as you can see, this is not the end goal. The end goal is we need to have a responsive city. We need a city that can readapt and reshape and reshift its infrastructure to meet all the demands and requirements. And that's where we feel the circular economy is achieved. And it has to be data-driven. You need to have access to the information. Otherwise, you cannot go very far. You cannot really have circular economy without having access, real-time access to the data. And on this note, I would like to, I really realize that, and I'm very sorry that I took more of the time. I would like to leave you with one of the most beautiful photographs that I came across. This one. Thank you very much. And I've rushed it, I know, and my sincere apologies for running really late.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Vasilis, and both of you for your really interesting presentations. I'm just for people who've tuned in, I'm going to ask some questions, and then, but we would like as many audience questions as possible. So if you just go to the event page and comment. But to start, so both of your projects involve essentially a lot of investment, not just in technologies, but also in storage and analyzing data. So my first question is, how do you incentivize businesses and also, city administrators to make this change and to make this investment?
Well, I mean, I'll take the business part, and then Vasilis can take the municipality part. This is something that we face daily with the people that we have at the research center, the executives that come to us with a number of problems, and the partners we have. The important thing is to be able to illustrate the connection between, the benefits and what is going on. The good thing is that, and that's why I mentioned in my presentation, the sunk cost. The good thing is that real life problems, we can take them on board, and this can become like research proposals that we can be funded by the European Union and start working with it and actually practically delivering solutions for real life problems that the companies already have. And this is something that we have seen happening. And that's why I said I am more focused in my discussion on the EU example rather than other examples that we have, because there are many. So the important thing here is to be able to that is why also with our research partners, but also we have an array of executives and companies with us. We are trying to align the research we are doing with the real life problems. So when you show them the results, even if it's on a test base, they are convinced that if they don't invest now, they will have bigger problems in the future. So it's not if you're going to do the investment, it's when are you going to do the investment. And this is what we're trying to illustrate to them. And so far, I am very happy and proud to say that the uptake from the managers, although there is some cost involved, it has been amazingly high.
Great. Vasilis?
Yes, that's actually spot on. And to add to this, there has to be a clear understanding of roles. So we're having now new stakeholders. We're talking about 5G, and 5G is not about only the frequencies. 5G is much more than the endpoints and the frequencies. We're talking about infrastructures like software-defined networks, and some councils are already thinking of becoming MNOs, mobile network operators. So this has not been clarified, or the policies on the processes, how this can be realized, has not been, it's not clear. And the fact that we are all moving towards we do understand that circular economy is something, is the new, maybe the best state to be in, but there are right ways and wrong ways doing that. The gig economy, for example, the gig economy, there was no framework, there was no legal framework, or there was not a compatible legal framework to have that. So just by saying that we have opportunities to be circular doesn't mean that we can get it right. We don't want to keep depleting the resources. We don't want to start over-exploiting the assets. We understand they're finite, and we need to strike the right balance. This, maybe economists know this much better. This is the Jevons paradox, or the Jevons effect. When you have highly elastic demand, you find a way to improve something, but then you deplete your resource even faster. Yeah.
Okay, so my next question, I suppose, verges like the cost and the privacy issues. So obviously there are tech firms that do sort of have a lot of data on people, for example, like Google, but people are sort of much more wary of the idea of, you know, foreign companies, like American companies, like having their data. So how do you firstly, would you consider working with big tech firms to use that data in order to eventually make the lives of citizens better? And then also, how do you do that? And how do you balance sort of the need to, I guess, streamline resources, save costs, but also protect privacy issues?
Yeah, can I go first, Yorgo?
Sure.
Actually, yes, definitely we need the big players because they've got a wealth of experience and resources and money to help solve these problems. And it is exactly striking the right balance. And yes, we're talking about many technological innovations. Also, what is really important and what is timely is the democratization of technologies. So the technologies have been substantially democratized. There are solutions that are decentralized, that help and promote citizens, promote individuals, promote smaller stakeholders. If we manage to keep these stakeholders into the equation, I think we can strike the right balance. If we're talking about having monopolies and putting more power to the powerful, then yes, most likely it's going to fail. But technology is now a very key aspect, and the decentralized technologies.
If I may add something to this, I would, well, first of all, from the angle of Vasilis, I would totally underline what he just said, and this is a key message. But I want to take it a little bit further again within the European context, and we are lucky enough that we have some, let's say, policies and regulations like GDPR is very important. We have to be compliant whatever we do, whether it's policy, technology, doesn't matter. We have to be compliant, at least within the EU context. But I want also to underline another very important element, which I already mentioned in my presentation: education, awareness, skills of the people, because what we are also observing is that there is a current imbalance between the technological evolution and the applications of technology with the level of awareness of the people. And funny enough, I can see that with my dad having a smartphone at his 70s and you know, doing things that in a way he shouldn't be doing because he doesn't understand the technology. But that's a very small example. So what I'm just trying to say is that the democratization that Vasilis just mentioned, coupled with the awareness and the knowledge and the skills, and this is where also education, I guess, comes in, but also the younger ages, will also help us prepare the new generations for all these matters. And the same goes with the sustainability and circular economy. You know, when you are at school, if you don't ever have this concept in your mind, how you will be able to be sensitive or interesting to those. So the same goes with our privacy, with our data. So we have to look at it always as a package, and that's what we're trying to do here. We have people like Vasilis and others that are really experts in the technical field. We have people that they really know what are the business and legal and ethical issues, and we are approaching all these things together from all the angles. So that's why we don't want to look things in isolation. We just want to see the components of a bigger picture.
Okay. So just, I suppose, relating to the current situation, we can't really avoid the fact that coronavirus has upended our whole lives, but also demonstrated our reliance on technology. So, I mean, but it's also made lots of countries like reevaluate their priorities with development. The European Union in particular has put the Green Deal at the heart of the recovery. So what investment and what changes do you want to see in order to sort of reach the targets of the new Green Deal, but also using your projects and your research of creating a circular economy? What would you do if you were in power right now, essentially?
Vasilis, do you want to get in power first?
Let me get the power. Let me taste the power a little bit. Yes, actually, yes. I mean, the lockdown and the coronavirus pandemic is a really, unfortunate thing that has happened to humanity and to this planet. But this is now an opportunity to make a decision taking faster. We're accelerating. We're taking decisions that it took us ages or years to take, and we're taking them in weeks. Even in a good example, again, which is very close to, and actually it follows circular economy principles, is the crowd participation and participatory sensing with the mobile contact tracing app. What we're realizing is that healthcare is escaping the healthcare system. We are talking about, there's this term now, social epidemiology. Social epidemiology. So people are solving epidemiological problems. We're not waiting for the healthcare system to give us a vaccine or whatever. Our behavior has changed. So if I was in power, I would ride this wave. I would try to make the most of it, and I will try to use this to leverage and take decisions towards the right, I would say, directions, whatever these would be. And I will give the pass over the power to Yorgos now.
Well, I mean, I agree with Vasilis, and I think that we need to see the lessons learned from this situation in order to understand what would be good to do. Because I would say that all of us in this call, and perhaps the audience as well, if you would tell them 1 year ago that you could and you would, the whole world would go totally virtual for some time, 6 months, 3 months, 4 months, 8 months, whatever. I don't think that there would be a guy that would say, yeah, you're right, it could happen. Nobody would say it could happen. Nobody could say that the EU could have meetings without physical meetings. Nobody could say that we could have all these virtual conferences and events. And actually, to be honest, in my personal experience, I have been able to, because a number of events went virtual, I have been able to receive so much knowledge because I couldn't be in so many places in such a short notice, and that gave me a lot of possibility to attend and network with people as well as our audience today. But what I would definitely do is that I would engage, as Vasilis said, more the people, and I would try to start making synchronous loops between the development and the maturity of the people, whether we are talking about environmental developments, whether we are talking about technological developments, whether we are talking about whatever other developments. This is something that we cannot keep these two loops being asynchronous any longer. People need to be aware, people need to be educated, people need to be responsible, and by empowering them to do that and to be like that, then this is the way you solve enough of problems, because nobody's judging the accountability of each other because we are doing a virtual event. I seen, for example, I've seen the announcement from Harvard a few days ago. They had declared the whole courses 2020, 2021 will be all virtual. Does that has any impact on the value actually of Harvard? I don't think so. So this is something that we have to start thinking about ourselves. And that's why also as business school, we are thinking and we are leveraging a lot of our focus on the technological developments, not because we think the rest are not important, but we think that this has the most fast pace of acceleration in whatever we are talking about.
Okay, thank you. So I'm conscious of, the need to answer some audience questions. The first question I'm going to ask was a question actually submitted in advance. So how do the Sustainable Development Goals factor into urban planning? From your...
Can you repeat that? Sorry, because I had a...
How do the Sustainable Development Goals, set in 2015, factor into urban planning and sort of your vision of cities?
Well, I mean, definitely the Sustainable Development Goals are part of our of focus, and definitely we are looking at them in a way that is complementary with what is happening to the EU, because the UN goals are a little bit broader and also have a different target audience, and EU has a different target audience and different scope. But these two things are not clashing, are totally complementary. And the way we see it is, at least the way we are doing our work, in the solution, when we're solution oriented, we're targeting into the EU, but when we want to broaden or generalize our outcomes, we're actually acting globally. For example, I just mentioned before that our work on how Internet of Things can enable circular economy and the supply chains and everything, this is public domain information. So this can contribute to any activity that the United Nations does. The colleagues there actually from United Nations and UNIDO are doing a great job, and they're looking at this kind of resources. So we're very glad to work with them. And actually we were panelists together at Harvard in March. So actually there is a lot of complementarity, collaboration between the two.
Vasilis, do you want to say anything, or I can move on to the next question?
Just a very small comment, and this was an excellent position. I would like just to highlight the fact that we are in these projects. These are RISE projects, Research, Innovation, Staff Exchange project. This is exactly this is the most probably appropriate instrument of EU projects to look into this and do research in these themes, because they're very geared into looking into these aspects.
Okay, so we've had some questions that have been commented on the live stream, and if you want to add to these, please do. So my first question is, and I apologize in advance for the pronunciation of this name, is from Zienab. And it is, thank you so much for the talks. My question is, what are your thoughts on the impact of CE-IoT and smart cities on resource depletion? Have you investigated that? i.e., how can we make the best use of the available resources while integrating the two realms, CE and digitalization?
Vasilis, do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
Yeah, I can give it a shot. This is a very good question, and it's a very difficult question. It boils down to striking the right balance. We're talking about introducing technologies, and sometimes heavy resource intensive technologies, computations, that can, but just by introducing these solutions, we're creating more problems. So to give you an example, the blockchain is a key enabling technology. We need blockchain to solve many problems, but blockchain is really resource intensive. So we are looking, the blockchain community is a research community. They are looking of alternative ways to implement blockchains. So they're not that resource intensive, but there's a big stream of research that is trying to create energy aware and energy respecting solutions. This is from the technological side. I don't know if Yorgos has anything else to add from a business side.
Well, from the business side, definitely. I mean, resource depleting is a baseline thing for of all the activities. I mean, this is what we're trying to fight against, the scarcity of resources. We need to be very mindful and very careful, and that is actually a cornerstone of our research. It's a pillar in our research and in the models that we want to develop. So and again, taking before the edge building, and you're talking about resource depletion. If you have a building that is generating 10% of the energy, more energy than is actually consuming, the technological advancements and the business models, because the building as such is not just a building, it's a whole business model concept with a lot of disciplines working on it, engineers, architectures, construction materials, everything is there. So that's a good example on how we're thinking about it. But one word of caution on everybody is that the transitions to a circular economy will not happen from one day to another. It will take time. And just because it's so directional and so multi-sectoral, and that we need to combine all these things together in a number of situations, and for every sector is different, the assumptions are different, the way we're implementing it is different, is not one size fits all. So my call to the people is that do not see the circular economy as one size fits all and every solution is the same for every sector. And we need to kick off the mindset into understanding the principles behind it.
Okay, thank you. So next question is quite brief, directed at Vasilis. So very interesting presentation using the Bournemouth case study. And this is from Peter Bates. He says, has Vasilis been communicating with the emergency planning community like Coventry University, who do like programs on disaster management and emergency planning? So have you been communicating with them?
No, not with Coventry, and thanks for raising that. I will note it down and I will contact them as soon as this call is over. Thank you.
Great. Glad we can make some connections here. Okay, so my third question is from Mario, and he says, brilliant explanations and illustrations. If we do reach a point where we have the solutions for responsive cities, who do you feel we need to buy in from to overcome the issue of security, privacy, and health and safety?
I guess that question is for me.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a very good point. Security is a process, and privacy protection is a process. We need to. There's a lot that has been done in the last 15-20 years in security, and there are many prominent research groups and companies that offer great solutions. However, we have seen now with wide use and wide accessibility of IoT devices that we are making the same mistakes. So we see IoT devices, we see equipment out there that is not properly protected. So history is, unfortunately, we're seeing that history is repeating itself. In the security community, we have always trying to reach out to raise awareness on all stakeholders. Everybody is using technologies now. Even the last citizen who's locked in their, even if they're not locked in their house, they're using some kind of device that is connected. This is an ongoing activity that hasn't stopped for many years now, I would say since the late 80s, when the first attack happened, the Morris Worm, in 1988, I think. And we realized that critical systems, or systems in general, are vulnerable. So this is a process, this is an ongoing battle that we're facing. And now we need to include not users, but citizens, because a citizen now is equivalent to a user, a computer user, a computer system user. So there's a lot of literature, there's lots of activities, there are certifications. The European Commission now and EU, they have this EU Cybersecurity Act that is in force since 2019, June 2019. There is organizations like ENISA that are they've got the mandate to implement the act. So this is tackled from many angles, and this will be ongoing.
Okay, so I'll ask a more general question now. So this is from Elio. How do you think the EU should incentivize companies to achieve real involvement and commitment to the circular economy for optimal waste management and to give them value in later use?
Great question. Well, I think that the answer is a combination of a number of things. Companies, they are looking forward to their viability, and viability comes through, let's say, their life cycle of whatever they do or whatever they produce, and the profit. And by the way, in the economy, profit should not be demonized, because if we demonize profit, then there is a big problem for the entire economy, which works in that way. So what we need to do for the companies is, there are a number of things. First of all, and actually the EU is doing it, is absorbing the sunk cost of research. So the research for the new business models or the new technologies or new things is being, I mean, to a certain extent, being absorbed by the EU. So these sunk costs will not be assumed by a number of companies, or companies that are being involved in the research, like in our case, which is very, very valuable. They get the proportion of the funding that allows them not to burden on their resources. The second way is to do a number of policies and regulations, because right now, one of the things that we know about circular economy, for example, there are a number, let's say, of policies, but regulations related to circular economy, I cannot think of one. I mean, there are regulations about all sorts of different things. There's the eco-innovation thing. There are a number of, things that are happening to plastics, but we don't have a clear regulation or a policy or something like that. Now, another thing is that, and what I show with the European Investment Bank, is there are a number of criteria related to circularity and a number of criteria related to a number of business models, and then these companies can get a very favorable loans to do their job in a different way, which they couldn't get these loans from other banks traditionally, or with not the same terms, etc., etc. So, and of course, that goes without saying, I'm going to be repeating it and you will get bored of me, is that companies needs to be educated as well. The new business models and the new business models need to be injected into their minds. And the other thing is that the companies, they always act within some boundaries. So we need to make sure that these boundaries allow them to work and survive, because we need them in the economy, while at the same time they are serving the purposes that have been decided within the context of the Green Deal, the Paris Agreement, the SDGs, and all these underlying principles that we are having here right now. So in a nutshell, you're not going to go to a company and say, now you need to work in this way, and you assume the cost. Nobody was going to do it. And this is our responsibility, the policymakers, the researchers, to be able to provide them with the tools, with the instruments, with the rules, with the regulations, to be able to do that. Okay. I will got a few more questions before we go. So this one's quite long. It's for Dr. Katos. So it says, it's from Tommaso. You mentioned that the gig economy as the wrong case for a circular economy. However, the gig economy case is typically circular in terms of the cycle or private innovation disruption of the market, production of the winner, losers, legislative intervention. The legislator, by definition, arrives after the disruption. E.g., today we have GDPR. 10 years ago, companies were collecting, storing, and selling all your sensitive digital data without even informing you. For this reason, this comes the question, instead of putting the gig economy in particular, don't you think that the problem rather lies with the way that the circular economy model is structurally promoted through private initiatives, as it promotes unregulated,
innovative practices, producing further social labor imbalances before public authorities can intervene and regulate. So essentially, how can we balance, the need to regulate versus the need to innovate?
Well, thank you for what can I say now? This is a really tough question. Absolutely, and yes, what I wanted to convey with giving an example of gig economy is exactly that. The gig economy was something that was kind of pushed. There was a need for that. It was maybe an evolution of working models and working relationships. The reason I mentioned the gig economy is because there wasn't a mature legislation. So people essentially lost some of their, people would lose their working rights. Yeah, people could, the gig economy is promoted that somebody can work whenever, however they want their terms, but that wasn't the case. So on paper, it is a brilliant idea, but when you start implementing it, there are holes, there are issues that need to be addressed. That was the purpose of my statement behind the gig economy. I don't know if this satisfies the viewer, this answer, but yeah, you're absolutely right.
Okay, so just got one final question before I let everyone go. Thank you for giving your time to us. So this is from Theodoros. I have a question regarding the business aspect of the circular economy in the context of smart cities and user data. What would be the incentive for large tech companies to get involved in such schemes?
Vasily, or you want me to go first?
Yeah, go.
Well, I mean, you need to understand that in this question there are two aspects: the technological aspect, and then there's the policy, regulation, business modeling, funding, and eventually the profit aspect. Meaning that from a technology perspective, if we're thinking about that our cities are evolving in any case and are becoming smarter and smarter, so these tech giants, they definitely want their piece of the cake. And data is the new gold right now. This is what, it's a very expensive commodity. Now, the point is that incentivizing them to do things that are in our mind properly, and this links with the question of the answered by Vasilis earlier, is that again we need to generate this type of environment from a policy, regulatory perspective that will allow the tech giants to get in and get their part of the pie, but without compromising the rights that we have, whether it's data privacy, data protection, etc., etc. So these are two parts of the pie, and eventually to enable smart cities, and we have to be very cautious when we're using this term. Eventually, we are talking technology-driven cities and technology interconnection, which provides data that gives us the possibility to do a number of things, whether it's checking with our phone how much time is the bus or the metro is coming, or whether it's going to be, in the area I am, it's going to rain, or whether there's a supermarket around or a gas station or many other things as well, or emergency situations like the ones that Vasilis explained. So there are going to be incentives there, and there are plenty of incentives actually. The key question here is how do we apply these incentives in order not to breach any of our privacy and our fundamental rights? And we have to be indeed very cautious about that.
Do you have anything to say, Vasilis, before we go?
No, I'm cautious of time as well, and part of it is was my cause, so I apologize again. Yes.
Great. Well, thank you both for your time. Thank you for everyone watching. This is actually a webinar series that we're running. So this is the first episode. It's a series called Loops about the circular economy. Our next episode will be on the 22nd of July at the same time, 11 a.m. Central European time, and it's going to be about construction. So not just how do you create circular cities, but how do you literally build circular cities. So I hope everyone watching can join then. But we'll wrap up there. Again, thank you to both Georgios and Vasilis for your interesting presentations, and look forward to seeing everyone again next time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.